Client-server systems and web-based databases, an overview with real-life examples. Presentation and questions answered by Maggie Zorb. The following presentation includes information from the Database Information Retrieval Systems class at UW-Milwaukee. This will give a basic knowledge overview in client-server systems. At the end of the presentation, feel free to utilize the list of references for further information. One of the advantages of client-server systems is improved security. Could this also be a disadvantage? Why or why not, and explain upon examples. In my research, I was unable to find information on if it's a disadvantage of client-server systems to have improved security as asked in this specific question. I feel that enhanced security is important for many businesses or individuals using client-server systems. For example, if you have improved security, it makes it harder for someone to hack into your system. I suppose the only disadvantage that would be is if there was an error that caused the company to need to hack into their own system in a backdoor way, but the likeliness of an entire facility needing to do this seems to be a rare circumstance to me. It's more likely that an outside source would try to intrude the system, making the improved security an overall advantage of using client-server systems. Having a single point of failure means that if one item or line malfunctions, then an entire system will no longer work. An example of this would be if UW Health had one server that the entire clinic community relied on. If that server were to go down or malfunction, even momentarily, then all the clinics would be impacted and no patient care would be able to take place in the entire organization. Most businesses strive to avoid having a single point of failure as to not be out of commission in the event of an error. As you can see by the icon demonstrated here, if the center is no longer functioning, then none of the icons are functioning. This demonstrates what a single point of failure would look like visually. There are many situations in which you would want to ensure that some type of backup system was in place. I believe that all businesses would likely want to have a backup system in place in the event of an outage. In my line of work, not having a plan in place in the event of unplanned downtime can mean the difference in life or death of a patient. To eradicate this from happening, we have created a downtime network that is a shadow instance of our live environment. This downtime environment is available on one workstation attached to a generator per clinic or building. This workstation gives access to only the necessary information for patients, giving an overview of just the information needed in the event of emergency or to notify the patient of the outage and cancellation. While not all businesses are in the area of patient care, they would likely want to back up their data. If an outage occurs and all of their data is lost, there could be severe repercussions, but most heavily financially. I also feel that anything time-intensive should have backup system in place, whether it be an infrastructure, Access database, or an Excel document. Files and databases holding large amounts of pertinent information should have a backup in place. Scalability is having the option to increase or decrease the size of your network. An example of this would be if Wells Fargo partnered with another facility such as Anchor Bank. If both systems were planned to be on the same network, Wells Fargo would need to ensure that they have the bandwidth to support additional users, locations, and processing. It is important to have the ability to scale up or down dependent on the business needs. A front-end processor does the running of software on the computer itself or the client, which works with the back-end server or network. An example of something that is using a front-end processor is Facebook. When you log on to Facebook on your phone, you can scroll down for more data and it refreshes and automatically loads as you do. That information, while initially loaded from the back-end processor, is actually stored at the front-end processor in order for the user to view it as they scroll. A back-end processor recovers data from a file or database. The back-end refers to the server aspect of client-server and is usually in reference to a database management system. An example of this would be when you put in a website address. When you enter that information, it's running through the back end to process the request you supplied. Another question posed is in regard to Google Docs. Have you ever used Google Docs to share documents? Have you used any other internet services to share files? Summarize your experience and explain on example. I am familiar with using Google Docs to share documents and editing rights with family and friends. Google Docs is the only internet service for sharing files that I have used. My experience with Google Docs is that it's an easy way to document, share with people when you don't have a set network with them already. It's been so much easier than sharing via email so that we don't have as many versions going back and forth, cluttering up email. I have never had an issue with non-authorized people accessing my documents. I've also never had an issue with lost information or information not updating as expected. It's been an enjoyable experience that I continue to use in my daily life. Summarize and use examples on JavaScript and VBScript. I'm fairly familiar with both of the scripting languages mentioned, JavaScript and VBScript. My experience with VBScript is in the form of macros in Excel. Using VB, build can be done in Excel to create forms, buttons, and perform functions in order to make a plain spreadsheet more engaging with an end user. JavaScript is a scripting language that is mostly used in web design, which I've had experience with in recent classes at UW Milwaukee. JavaScript can change how the information appears to you on a web page, changing style, size, and even can be used for data validation. Both these languages are done on the client side. ASP.NET and ColdFusion are programming development frameworks, and PHP is a scripting language for server-side extensions. ASP.NET is a Microsoft-based application used to create web development. ColdFusion is an Adobe application for web build. PHP is the scripting language that is used in ASP.NET and ColdFusion. ASP.NET, ColdFusion, and PHP are all done on the server, whereas JavaScript and VB are done on the client. At UW Health, we perform dynamic web development on ASP.NET. We are able to include forms and other build that is processed on the server before displayed for an end user. Using these types of web design applications allow a more robust build of the information being placed on the website using web design. As you can see in this presentation, there are many advantages of client-server systems, with the biggest advantage being security. It may be a lot of planning, but the outcome will be worth all the planning.
That's all, folks.